Amazing knife. Why do I have two knives? I ordered them as a present. Santoku means that it's not actually a conventional European shape, but it's not either the Japanese. These knives appeared in 20th century when Japanese knife makers decided to make something similar to European shapes. When Japanese people were introduced to European food, especially to beef, and it was actually difficult to cut beef with the conventional Japanese kiritsuke knives. So they invented the Santoku knife. Something in between the traditional European shape and the Japanese cleaver. Traditional, I mean the European chef knife, which is usually a bit longer. And it turned out that this Santoku knife became a very popular knife for the reasons that it's not too long and it's easy to use for the beginners. You may cut meat, you may cut fish, you may even break some bones with it, and also you may chop some vegetables because the shape of it is not that round, so you may actually use it as a cleaver. Mac uses proprietary steel for all of their knives, and this steel is quite popular. If you compare this knife to something that I already discussed on this channel before, like Shun knife, this steel is a little bit softer. So this is not the VG10 steel, but also it's not as soft as German knives, like for example Wusthof knives. And that's the reason people like it so much, because Wusthof knives are amazing. However, they get dull pretty quickly. The VG10 knives are extremely sharp. However, they are brittle. If you try to break any bones or frozen food with VG10, you will eventually break it. But this Mac steel, the proprietary steel, it stands somewhere in between 59 to 60 Rockwell scale. So it's quite useful for day-to-day usage. And the maintenance is not that high. It's not that brittle as VG10. So that's the reason I bought these knives for a present, because people I bought them for are not knife enthusiasts. They don't really know how to sharpen knives and stuff like that. Maintenance will be an issue for them. So something like Mac will be very useful for them. For me personally, I prefer VG10, but I'm an enthusiast, so I like to sharpen my knives nicely and I take care of them. But for regular people that don't really take much care about knives, this is a better option. And it's much cheaper as well. So steel, the proprietary Mac steel, which does exist in two kinds, regular and the superior. Superior is very same steel, but processed with one extra step. They freeze it to extreme temperature, so it becomes a little bit more brittle, but a bit more sharper, and it does hold the edge a little bit better. It is nicely balanced, but I don't really like this handle, I must admit. This handle looks a little bit bulky. They could introduce some better transition from the blade to the handle. Of course, this isn't a Damascus type knife that looks extremely nice and extremely pretty. This knife is regular, I'd say. The look is regular. $70 is not that much, you know. I bought my Shun knife for $150, which is considerably more expensive, and if you give it as a present, you must consider that when that person wants to sharpen the Shun knife, the VG10 steel knife, it will not be that easy. They also need to buy a Japanese whetstone to do that. Well, of course, to get the best quality, you also need a whetstone for this knife. So let's get to it. Let's cut some stuff, and let's see how it behaves. I do have a few items today. Bread, which is like 3 days old, an onion that's really stringy, and carrot. So let's cut the carrot. Well, it cuts like a dream. It's a factory sharpened knife. Bread is always a difficult task because not all knives cut bread nice. Works fine. Cuts nicely. However, I must admit that Shun knife, you may see the review of the Shun knife on this channel, it did cut considerably better. It did. This one is good, but I do feel some resistance. I believe that due to the thickness of this knife, it does give some resistance. So bread cutting is gorgeous, but not as good as the Shun. And the last test, let's cut some onion that's really stringy. Oh, that one's nice. Amazing. It does cut easily. Nice. That's the Santoku knife, so it mostly is intended for the vegetables. Okay. Amazing. And you know what? Once I started using it, actually, this handle is not that bad. The grip is actually really good. I want to put my finger on this, but it's a little bit thick. I think that's perfectly fine for the price point. So 6 years in, guys, what can I tell about this knife? It's a workhorse. There is not much joy using this knife because of the looks. Yes, it's not Damascus, it's not like a nice pretty looking knife. However, somehow this 6.5 inch is the most versatile thing for me. I tend to use it the most. So the edge retention is actually great, because I do own other Mac knives like this, which is not superior, so the edge retention is not that great. But this superior steel is awesome. It's like the VG10 actually. Another thing, it does not chip. VG10 does chip, which is very bad. This one, I abused it a lot and it never chipped. Never. It does rust a little bit, so there are some rust spots here. You can see those very, very small ones. You can leave it in the sink. I left it in the sink for many, many, many times. Nothing happened. You do see those patches in some places, but that's not a big problem at all. The knife is very forgiving. I'm not afraid to abuse it. However, I wouldn't open cans with it, like with Wusthof. I open cans with Wusthof, no problem. This one, it never chipped, but I'm a little bit afraid. I sharpen it easier than the VG10. It's very close to VG10. Not as easy as Wusthof. Wusthof is like a couple times you go through and it's done. No, this one is somewhere in between. Considering that it holds the edge that well and it rusts a little bit, it reminds me a little bit of Shirogami, but it's nothing like Shirogami. That one rusts like crazy. But yeah, easy to sharpen, holds the edge well. So that's two characteristics about this knife. The food release is okay. It has this matte finish here, so food does not stick to it. However, it does not glide through the food like the Damascus knives I have from Shun. But that's by design, because this knife is advertised as being tough by design, and it's not really easy to glide through the food, through the tomatoes, through soft stuff like that. It's advertised as being resistive. It resists the food a little bit. So for some high performance cooks that need to do lots of that, tomato stuff, maybe not best idea. However, somehow I think it will work for them as well. So in general, amazing knife, guys. Have you had any experience with knives like these, with Mac in particular? Tell your comments, because when I started to review it, I thought it was not a really good knife. However, it looks like it's like ultimate workhorse for me at least. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned, stay in touch, and we'll see you later.